All right, letter D on these problems. When you have denominators of 10, 3, 5, and 2, I like to multiply both sides of this equation by the LCD, which would be 30. When you multiply each piece by 30, it clears the denominators. In multiplying 30 times x over 10, the 10 goes into 30 3 times and you get 3x. The 3 goes into 30 10 times and you get 10 times 1 is 10. Then the 5 goes into 30 and it gives you 6. Leaves you with 6x. The 2 goes into 30, which is 10 times, and 10 times 1 is 10. Now you have a linear equation where you solve by subtracting 3x from both sides. And that gives you 3x. 2 goes into 30 15 times. And you subtract 15 from both sides, and that gives you -5. Dividing both sides by 3, we get x is equal to -5 over 3. All right, so that one's called clearing the fractions by multiplying by the least common denominator. Letters E and F. When you distribute the 4 across, you get 8x minus 8 minus 9, and then that's 8x minus 17, and that's 8x minus 4. When we subtract the 8x from both sides to get all the x's on the same side, they cancel the x's out. And since that's a false statement, that means that there's no solution here. When there's no variables left over, and it's a false statement, it's no solution. Whereas letter F, you distribute the -3 across, and then the 2, 5m minus 3m is 2m. 2m minus 3 on the right side. This time the 2m's cancel each other out. But you end up with a true statement. This one gives all real numbers. Letter G, we solve that one by getting rid of the decimals. And if you got 2 decimal spaces and 2 decimal spaces, that one calls for multiplying by 100. 100 times W minus 100 times 0.06 W and 100 times 26.32. It gives 100 W minus 100 times 0.06 is 6. And 100 times 26.32 is 2,632. So then on the left side, 100W minus 6W is 94W. Dividing both sides by 94, is 85,852. Let's see, 2,632 divided by 94. $752. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 9 is 72, plus 3 is 75. Gives me 0. So it's W equals 28. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Letter I. When I want to solve for W, I get all the pieces on the other side that don't have a W. Whatever I solve for, I want everything else on the other side. So the P is on the left side, that's fine, and I don't want this 2L, so I subtract it from both sides. P minus 2L equals 2W. Now I don't want the multiplication by 2, so I divide both sides by 2. It gives me W equals P minus 2L divided by 2. Translating, when we see 5 less than something, 5 less than something is taking 5 away from twice a number. That's 5 less than twice a number, and that is 20. 5 times the sum means take the sum first, which is a number n and 6, and we take 5 times that, and that's 7. But if we take the sum of, meaning first the sum, and then take 5 times n and 6, that says you want to take 5 times n and then add that to 6, and that is 7. So when you say 5 times the sum, you need the parentheses. When it says the sum of, you don't need the parentheses. Number 5 says a repair bill on a yacht came to $1,603. So the total of the repair bill was $532 for parts and the remainder for labor. So parts plus labor equals the total bill. And the labor is 63 per hour. So we'll let H be the number of hours worked on the yacht. And so that's 63 times the number of hours. 63 per hour, so we multiply 63 by H, and that gives us the labor. The total bill is 1,603. So the parts plus the labor is the total bill. So we subtract 532 from both sides. And 3 minus 2 is 1. 10 minus 3 is 7. 1,071. So we divide that by 63. $63 into 1,071. 63 goes into 107 one time. Remainder 441. And 7 times 3 is 21. 7 times 6 is 42. Plus 2 is 44. So 17 hours worked on the yacht. Number 11, find last year's salary if after a 6% raise, this year's salary is 61,480. So we're saying last year's salary is X, and it got increased by 6%. And so when you increase something by 6%, you take 6% of it, and that equals the new salary, or this year's salary, of 61,480. So we multiply everything by 100. 100 times X, 100 times 0.06 is 6, and 100 times 61,480 is 614,800. It gives us 106X equals 614,800. We divide both sides by 106. We have 614,800 divided by 106. And that's $58,000. $58,000. So that's what you call a percent of increase, because you're adding, and then sales are percent of decreases. And so a designer dress is on sale for $112, and this value, $112, is 30% off of the original price. So the original price, or the price before the markdown, is X, and the 112 comes from taking that and taking 30% off of the original price. So we take the 30% away, 30% of X away from the original price, and that equals 112. All right, so this is essentially one decimal place, 0.3, so we multiply everything by 10. 10x minus 3x equals 1120. 10x minus 3x is 7x. 1120, so we divide both sides by 7. 7 goes 11 once. 1 times 7, 7, remainder of 4. Bring down the 2, so it looks like $160 is the original price of this designer dress. All right, let's look at these car problems, uniform motions. You see these uniform motion problems, you want to write the formula. Distance equals rate times time. Two cars are 120 miles apart. They travel toward each other, one traveling 10 miles per hour faster than the other. If they meet in 3 hours, find the rate of speed of each car. Car 1 and car 2. One is traveling 10 miles per hour faster than the other one. And the time that they spend traveling is 3 hours. So the distance that each of these cars travel, the first one's rate times time, which is 3 times x plus 10. And the second one is 3x. Since these cars started off 120 miles apart, and car one's going faster than car two, it's going to get a little further, travel a little further than car two. But what we know is that their distances, if we add them up, has to be 120 when they meet, because the distance for car one plus the distance for car two has to be 120. So we get 3x plus 30 plus 3x equals 120. The left side is 6x plus 30. The right side is 120. When we solve that, we subtract 30, and we get 90, or 6x equals 90. When we divide by 6, we get x is equal to 15. So car 2 is 15 miles an hour, and car 1 is 10 miles an hour faster than that, so 25 miles per hour. And so if we check that, 3 hours at 15 miles an hour is 45 miles. 3 times 15, 3 times 25 is 75. And you add this up, that's 120 miles. 15 miles per hour and 25 miles per hour are the times. Or sorry, are the speeds. Now 15 is another distance equals rate times time problem. And this time you have two cars traveling the same route. Slower car and faster car. So we label them slower and faster. The slower car averages 40 miles per hour and the faster car averages 50. But the faster car leaves 2 hours after the slower car. So that means if the slower car travels, the faster car will travel for less time. And we want to know how many hours will the faster car overtake the slower. So we want to know how long this faster car, how long it takes. So let's let that be the variable. And then the slower car traveled for a whole 2 hours while that faster car didn't move. So it's 2 hours more travel time for the slower. Now we do the same thing, rate times time, which is 40 times x plus 2 equals 50 times x, or sorry, is 50x for this faster car. But they went over the same route this time, and the moment the faster car overtakes the slower, their distances will be the same. So we set our two distances equal to each other. And so that gives us 40x plus 80. Solving that by subtracting 40x from both sides. Which is 10x equals 80. And dividing by 10 gives us x equals 8. So it takes 8 hours for the faster car to overtake the slower. All right, so really the only thing you need to keep in mind with solving linear inequalities as opposed to equations is when you do this division by a negative number. So if you have negative 3x is less than 21, when you divide by the negative 3, to get rid of that negative 3, you have to flip the symbol over and it gives you x is greater than negative 7. So here, greater than negative 7. And then in interval notation, it starts from the left at negative 7 and goes to positive infinity. All right, let's look at graphing lines. So the best way to graph these lines is to write them in slope-intercept form. If I have 8x minus 2y is negative 16, I solve for y by subtracting 8x from both sides. And now divide by negative 2, and I get y is equal to 4x plus 8. So 8 is the starting point, 0, 8, and the slope is 4 over 1, or rise 4 and run 1. So we go up to 0, 8. We put a point there. And if I rise 4 and run 1, that's my next point of 112. But I can also rise negative 4 and run negative 1. Meaning go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and left 1. Down 1, 2, 3, 4, and left 1. And I keep going down 1, 2, 3, 4, and left 1. I keep doing that until I can't do it any further. And then I use the straight edge to connect the dots. If the line is already given to us in slope-intercept form, like letter D, well, then we're ready to go. Starting point is 0, 5. And this time the slope is negative 3 over 4, or rise negative 3 and run 4. So we rise negative 3 or go down 1, 2, 3 and run 1, 2, 3, 4. And I go down another 1, 2, 3 and over 1, 2, 3, 4. Down another 1, 2, 3 and over 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I put some points in the upper left by rising 3 and running left 1, 2, 3, 4. Rising 3 and running 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left. And so I use a straight edge to draw the line straight through all those points. And there's my line.
How will I know when it's supposed to be dotted? Like a dotted line.
You'll never have a dotted line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where'd you see that?
In one of the problems, I think I was redoing the 3 point. Actually, no, I was doing one of the most recent ones. I think it was 4 point. It was one of the homeworks, and one of the lines was dotted, I think. Or I had to use both. I had to use a straight edge and dotted. But I didn't know why I had to use a dotted line.
Well, I think, yeah, dotted line, dotted, or you mean you actually had it, you mean you're talking about a line that was actually just dotted instead of a line through the dots?
Yeah, is there a difference? Like, or is it just the line?
That's not covered in this class.
Oh, okay then. Okay.
You're always going to connect the dots.
Oh, okay then.
Well, no, now I take that back. Sometimes we just say, here's an equation, y equal x plus 2, and we say just plot some of the points that are solutions to it and leave it alone. But for this test, you won't see any of that stuff. That's real basic stuff, because what we really want you to do is connect the dots for the entire line.
Oh, okay then. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now look at these problems right here. Y equal -2, y equal -2x, x equal 3. When it's just a y equals number as opposed to y equal -2x, this means that y equals always -2. So this is a horizontal line. Everywhere where y is -2 is along that horizontal line right there. Whereas if I say that x is always +3, that means it's always going to be on the vertical line through x equals 3. If it's y equal -2x, this time the slope is -2 and the y-intercept is 0, 0. Zero, 0, and the slope is -2/1. So I rise -2 and I run 1. Rise -2 and I run 1, and I keep doing that. All right. So remember, a horizontal line like this, it's all running left and right, and it's a 0 for a rise. So the slope is always rise over run. And so if you have 0 rise in any given run, like a 5 or something, that's 0. So we say it's a 0 slope for y equals. I always like to think of these as horizontal lines have 0 slopes, have y equals. And then I just think of oi every time I think of a horizontal line. And then vertical lines, this time they're all rise and 0 for the run. And when you do rise over run, you have 0 in the denominator and any number in the numerator, and division by 0 is always undefined. And so if a vertical line has undefined slope and has an x equals equation, I like to think of VOOCs every time I see a vertical line or undefined slope or x equals. Just a mnemonic device to help me. Okay, when you find intercepts like this, the x-intercept always has y equal to 0. So if you set y equal to 0, you're literally covering that 10y up there, and it's not even there anymore. It says 5x equals 5, or x is 1. And the y-intercept has x equal to 0. And so if I cover that up, x equal to 0, it says -10y is 5. You divide by -10, and that's -1/2. When you look at these points and you find the slope of the line between them, you use that formula. The rise is y2 minus y1, and the run is x2 minus x1. And so -3 minus 1 is -4, and 8 minus a minus 2 is 10. And that simplifies to -2/5. But letter B is a VOOCs because the x's are the same. And when you do y2 minus y1, you get 5. And when you do -2 minus -2, you get 0. That's the undefined slope. And C, that's the oi, because you look at the y's are the same there. So when you do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, the numerator is 0 this time, and the denominator is -16. and that's 0. So horizontal lines have 0 slope, and vertical lines have undefined slope. So I already showed you how to write it in slope-intercept form when we graph that line. This is real important here. Graph the line whose slope is -5/3 and passes through the point -3, 2. So I go over to -3 and I go up to 2. Plot my point first. Then I use my slope of -5/3, which means to rise -5 and run 3. So I rise -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I run 1, 2, 3. I rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I run 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. Now I do the opposite of that, which is putting the negative on the denominator, and then I rise 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and run 1, 2, 3 to the left this time, left 3. Rise 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and run 1, 2, 3. And so there's my line through those points. All right, and then we find the equations of lines. And for this, we use point slope. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. y1 is -4, so I have y minus -4. M is -4. And x1 is 2. So that's x minus 2. Get rid of the y minus -4 and write y plus 4. And then I distribute the -4 across -4x plus 8. I subtract 4 from both sides to get y by itself and have y equals -4x plus 4. Letter B says the line that has the point -2, 3 and has undefined slope. So immediately when you see something that says undefined slope, you should think of the mnemonic device VOOCs. And their equations have to be x equals a number, and it's got to pass through all the -2, so it's x equal to -2 as the equation. When it contains 2 points, then you first have to find the slope. And remember, the slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 1 minus a -6 over 3 minus 4. 1 minus -6 is 1 plus 6, which is 7. And 3 minus 4 is -1, so that gives us a slope of -7. So then we just use one of these points, say 4, -6, and m equals -7, and we use x1, y1, and we plug it into y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Y minus a -6 equals m, which is -7 times x minus 4. So y minus -6 is y plus 6, and -7 times x, and -7 times -4 is 28. All we do is subtract 6 from both sides now, and we get -7x plus 22. Letter D's got the 2 points, so we find the slope between those 2 points, and we see that there's 1 minus negative 3 for a rise, which is 4, and 5 minus 5, there is no run. So when it's all rise, 5, negative 3, and 5, 1, when it's all rise and no run, you have a vertical line. That slope is undefined. And the equation has got to be x equals, well, yeah, they're both 5, so the equation has to be x equals 5. If they tell us it needs to be horizontal, that's when we go into a mnemonic device, OY, H-O-Y. There's zero slope, but it's got an equation that has to have a y in it. Y equals the y value, 1. All horizontal lines have equations that are y equals. If we want to find the equation of a line parallel to this line, we have a point, 3, negative 2. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. To be parallel to this line, we use the same slope. Letter G says perpendicular to the same line, and so instead of using same slope, you use the negative reciprocal. So the slope of this line is found by writing it in slope-intercept form, negative 4x plus 9. Dividing by 3 gives me y equals negative 4/3 x plus 3. So if this slope is negative 4/3, we use that same exact slope. And then we go y minus negative 2, x minus 3. Left is y plus 2, and the right is negative 4/3 x. And negative times negative is positive, and the 3 on the top and the bottom becomes just a 4 left over. Subtracting 2 from both sides gives me y equals negative 4/3 x plus 2. And then g is the same kind of thing. Remember, we found in the first one that the slope was negative 4/3 of this line. Well, what we have to use is the negative reciprocal because it's perpendicular. So y minus y1 equals m, we use the negative reciprocal. So if this slope is negative 4/3, we use m equal to the negative, which is positive, and reciprocal is 3/4. We use 3/4. And then we write that in slope-intercept form by distributing 3 across, 3/4 across, get 3/4 x. And this is over 1, so that's 9/4. Subtracting 2 from both sides, we have y equals 3/4 x, negative 9/4 minus 2. Minus 2, that's negative 8/4. And so that's negative 9 minus 8 is negative 17 over 4. Okay, same thing. If it's equation line through the point 3, negative 2, and parallel to the line x equal to 9, The line x equal to 9 is that Vuk's vertical line through x equal to 9. And if it needs to be parallel to that, but passing through 3, -2, parallel means it needs to be vertical as well. And you see that every single point on that line is x equal to 3. So when they're perpendicular or horizontal, sorry, if they're perpendicular to a vertical, parallel to a vertical, it'll be vertical. If it's perpendicular to a vertical, it'll be horizontal. And when we find equations of vertical and horizontal lines, we use that Oi and Vuk's. So parallel to a vertical line is vertical. If we want the line perpendicular to x equals 9 this time, perpendicular to x equal to 9 is going to be a horizontal line through 3, -2. So if we want a horizontal line, the Oi states that it needs to be a y equals, and all of these points on that horizontal line are y equals -2, or have y equal -2. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the review, or at least for the time. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to, any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Okay, great. So I'm really glad you showed up tonight. I would have sat here by myself. So good luck on Saturday, and hope to see you in another one of the webinars.